So I learned early on. Domestic violence and brutality and old world ways of settling scores not only develop brutal people and predators, but also could potentially annihilate the human race if we develop so much of our society to be predators through brutal means. And we can't live like cavemen anymore. We can't live like third world people, uncivilized people. We can't live like that. But we do have people in our population who are uncivilized, who, if given the opportunity, would brutalize somebody if they had a good reason. And you find those in areas, whether it's in high levels of government or behind the curtain or in your neighborhood. And we know those type of people exist. We see them post stuff on the internet. I finally stopped following people who post animal abuse. Okay, because people do get off on posting aggressive, brutal pictures. And they get off on being brutal to their peers. They get off on bullying their peers. They get off on a lot of things that you're like, where the hell did they get it from? Well, you can only imagine what the movies, the videos, the TVs, the video games have done to some people, even war. Sometimes war, well, actually all the time, war, the images of war brutalizes a person's potential future, and then they reenact what they've seen in war, or they have PTSD, or they try to control that demon. That's a hard demon to control. And so some people go off the deep end, and some of them are vets, and they've seen some atrocious things. Okay? And so we're heading into a regime that is tired of seeing all the suffering. And I finally figured out that the left wing showed you out there through all the sexuality, the porn, all the different, orientations even, the suffering in people, even the politics, religion, the science, the lack of assimilation to air, food, and water. They showed you all the suffering in humanity. Now that you know that suffering is going on and you have ways to mitigate it or survive it. But one of the largest triggers or roots of suffering is having children. And so we're seeing what happens when these kids are being brought into this world in bodies in deficit, and they have sexual orientation, which okay, and they have issues with air, food, and water. But now we're going to see through this next regime, all that suffering be channeled through the family. We're going to raise our kids to be good. And eventually someone is going to corrupt them. They're going to get pregnant. They'll have to get either an abortion if they're in a blue state, or they're going to have that baby and get married, because that will look respectable for the family. And that includes even in the Hebrews, in any of these religions out there that come off as holy and whatever. Okay. And I understand, but that's the thing, is we're going to now hide the suffering through the family, through pregnancy, through drugs, through operations, and then people in a highly influential environment may not even survive. How the system will treat their suffering. And that's how I'm seeing what this next regime is going to be now, is hiding all the suffering through politics, religion, science, through the family, through pregnancy. And so, and again, I know at this point I've done my best to show everyone what suffering does and how to release the suffering, how to release the demons, how to release the monkey on your back, if you can even trace back to where it originated from. See, through this last 8 years, I finally released the layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of programming, whether it's other traumas or drugs or alcohol or remedies and surgeries or activist stances. I had to release all of those layers and layers and layers to finally get to the root of where my suffering came from, my origination point. And now I understand what my mother did. She developed, yes, something to resist. She developed something that I had to deal with and survive. And there was no guarantee I was going to survive it, but at least it gave me the motivation to keep moving, to keep moving. And then eventually when I finally get to a stable situation, finally face the demon. And even look back on even my behaviors reacting to that little demon and having some kind of contrition. Imagine you go out throughout your whole life and never ever having contrition for whatever you've contributed to in your society. When you come off like you're so good, people lie to themselves all the time. And so then you see the deception. And that's what I was so confused with in our society, is that people are like coming off like, oh, I'm so good, I'm so nice, I'm so this. And then I see another side to them that they don't even know that's coming out. That is completely the opposite. Like the facade's cracking. The Botox and the plastic surgery and all the nice clothes and your religion, your politics and your science can't even hide the corruption that you haven't even corrected yet. But hey, you have all of your facades. But in this climate change, those facades are cracking. And when you see the facade cracking and you finally see people for what they really are because they never corrected the corruption and they keep compounding their corruption, then you want to get the fuck out of society because you know what they're dealing with. And not like it's their fault. They were brought into this world on corruption. That was the whole original sin through Catholicism. You were brought in corruption. You were brought into this world through corruption, through sin, through trauma. And you either had to fix that and not repeat it, or you kept repeating it and passing that pain and that suffering and that trauma and compounding it to the next generation, until you have so many people in our society running around pretending that they're so wonderful and they're stabbing each other in the back. And that's what I've felt my whole life, is I thought people were one way and I find out, oh my God, it's not what I thought. And it just kept tearing my world down. So I'm thinking, I want to believe what people say, but that's the thing. And that's all about, you look at people's actions, not what they say. And you want to believe what they say, but you can't. You can't, because people are even lying to themselves. And I realized that the system had to show you both sides, with Democrat and Republican. When you come into this world so good, you will get corrupted. And that corruption could destroy you. That corruption can make you stronger. That corruption can turn you fucking mean and hateful. And then having babies on top of that makes it even worse. And then you keep continuing to develop babies on corruption. Then you have a generation of predators, a generation of people who don't know how to defend themselves, a tired generation. And that's why I wanted you guys to watch that movie about the Austin serial killer, especially for the men who want to come off like they're so good. Because maybe they were a bad boy when they were younger, because they had all this power and they let it go out of control, and maybe they got women pregnant and whatever. Or they did stupid shit like commit crimes that was like misdemeanors but not felonies. And then later on, they want to become a good person. And they try to be so good that they put themselves in danger because they didn't know how to balance out the goodness and the badness within. You had to have a little bit of badness so that way you can protect yourself in a fucking predatory society. But we have these bad boys that finally are a little bit contrite with their badness, so they become good and pay it forward and do all these things for people, for strangers, like changing a stranger's tire on the side of the road. Like trying to save this person or that person and walking into danger. And then they get victimized because they put themselves in a position, just like the whole Craigslist stuff, or the Craigslist killer, yes. But all this like Facebook Marketplace and buying things online and going to strangers' houses and buying shit for them, going into their house. You don't know who the hell it is you're dealing with. You don't know what you're walking into. And so we have these bad boys that then are, okay, I'm going to be good now. And then they lower their defenses and they walk into fucking danger. And some of these girls are born so good, so chaste, so virginal. Now go look at all your Christian Right, your Hebrews, all the different religions out there, even the atheists. And their girls are so good, Their girls are like, maybe they're like 12 or 13. And then one day when that puberty hits and that demon within, that sex demon you know is lurking, wakes up, and somebody in that community woke up that demon, that's the beginning of the corruption. And then if she gets pregnant out of wedlock, then it's either you get an abortion, but that's a sin in some religions, and that's going to be a sin in this next regime. Then she'll be forced to get married. She'll be forced to have that child, and she could be like, 90 pounds, 80 pounds. So she looks like basically a toothpick with a bubble. That baby's going to destroy her. Her husband, the family are going to fucking destroy her. But hey, we chose to have children, knowing, if we can remember what we went through as far as the walk of shame. Oh, it's not the walk of shame, it's a God's thing, right? I mean, you hear that with these kids that get victimized in the church. I'm the representation of God, and whatever's happening is supposed to happen, and that's how these poor guys, boys and girls, get victimized by somebody in the clergy, because someone found a way to justify abusing them. So you can only imagine what these girls are going to have to deal with when they have to finally go and be released into the world. And they explore things that are going to eventually come to surface. And you hope they survive it, but that's the thing. No, they're going to get married because that's respectable. And then have that kid, and then maybe in 10 years, maybe even less, baby mama drama. Baby daddy drama. And there's that suffering. But hey, it'll kept in the family. And then you're seeing out there in the population, all the died suddenly. Died suddenly. Why are they dying suddenly? Because they had kids. They couldn't afford to because their body was already in deficit. They have issues with air, food, and water. They've been treated like countless times, been in and out of the hospital at least the last 3 years. And so the system is now going to channel all the suffering, the death, the destruction, the corruption through the family and through the medical system. And we're not going to see too much of the whole sexual orientation out there. We're not going to see so many people putting out porn and want special treatment for whatever, for their race, their religion. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to have a whole Christian values, some kind of moral compass, and some of these girls are not going to survive because they were not equipped to deal with pregnancy. They weren't even equipped to deal with the environment. And so that's kind of the plight for these girls out there. They'll be married into slavery. They'll be sold into slavery. And that's what I was kind of mourning the last few weeks, months, was the plight of these girls and women, because their families had children before they really understood what it meant to have children. They forgot what it's like to be that girl exploring her womanhood, and some guy takes advantage, or it was so nice, and then she becomes pregnant, and then she has like 1 billion kids, and now some of these kids are in the hospital, in and out, have diseases that you hope they survive climate change. And so I figured it out, when I figured out the origination of my little demon, which was a psychological operation, it's no different than 9/11, when someone contrived a situation to force somebody to negotiate and strategize a survival. Then that right there colored everything from that point forward. And that was a demon within, that within the last 4 months I have been dealing with. And it's painful. When you have unresolved trauma, unresolved problems, a monkey on your back, and probably several of them, but there is one origination point. There is one ring that rules them all. There is the lead vampire within the body too. There's lead vampires out there in your politics, religion, science, and in your group of friends, like the queen bees and the king bees. But there is a lead vampire within your body that then the rest of the colony forming units of microbes play off from. and replicate from and fornicate with, if you want to even go to that. And so when I finally got to the lead vampire the last couple days, I had to make sure I characterized that situation as correctly as possible without taking down the fucking house and without destroying somebody else's world. Because you don't want to release your demons and deal with your bullshit at the expense of somebody else. But you still have to get the point across, and the people who you're talking about know that you're talking about them, but the world doesn't have to know who they are unless other people who know them can put shit together. But at that point, they've already heard stories about you, so they might as well hear the other side of it. Since they've only heard one side of it, well, you'll hear my side of it. Okay, so those that know who I'm talking about, you'll get the other side of it. You already did the other day. But there's no reason for me to go and embarrass anyone or whatever. There's no point in that. I played that game a couple of years ago of public humiliation. Okay. With people who were disputing me on Facebook and whatever. So anyways, we're gonna see what happens when people then come into this world so good and so chaste and so perfect, right? Raising your girls to be so perfect. And then when you are already a good girl and a good guy, eventually at some point, someone will either try to corrupt you or you get tired of being a good guy and a good girl and then you become bad or channel your badness through means that are regulated by the government, turn to alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever. But that, again, that Austin serial killer movie on YouTube, about the Lady Bird Lake murders. That guy, that brother, and he was Hispanic in a Hispanic family. His brother was going to college or something, and then his other brother works as a nurse in an ER trauma. Well, that guy that was victimized, he was a good boy. Everyone loved him. Everyone thought he was amazing. He never swore, never said a bad word. He loved everyone. Everyone loved him. And when you're like that, you have to be protected by the herd. But you won't know that you'll have to be protected by the herd. So you go out there, walk into danger, be lured in by some nefarious person, and then it's done. I constantly tell my husband, I know, honey, you were a bad boy way back when, and I know you're now trying to make up for being a bad boy by being a pay-it-forward type of dude. He's always been a good dude, but he wants to be really good now because his record's pretty much clean. Anything that he may have done through child support is off his record. And so he's pretty much almost done paying his child support. And whatever shit he did back then, criminal trespass because he was playing with his boys, whatever. He's been a good fucking boy with me. But I don't want him to take that to a fucking extreme. I don't want him taking that to an extreme. I don't want him helping damsels in distress or men in distress on the side of the road, whether it's late at night or early in the morning. I don't want him stopping and being a good Samaritan unless there are police around. I don't want him to be a police informant for some situation. I don't want him to play that game of then, licking somebody's boots out there, lest those boots make him into a patsy. I want him to understand that even the police out there could use anyone as a tool for something. Okay? Even your peers out there could be so freaking nefarious and hurt you and rob you. I don't want him to go to that point. And sometimes these bad boys are really good inside. They just became bad because they just had powers that they didn't know how to control. And they become so good that they get destroyed by their peers who see that weakness within them. And so I wanted him to watch that movie to understand you can't trust people out there. I don't care if they're policemen. I don't care if they're firemen. You can't trust people out there. You have to always know there is something lurking in the bushes, or else you'll walk into danger and not survive it. And that's what happened to those guys in Austin, Lady Bird Lake. They walked into danger. They put themselves out there. And You don't want to ever be in that position. You don't ever want to be caught alone. You don't want to be ever caught drunk. You don't want to ever be caught under the influence in public, because someone will make an example out of you, whether it's a nefarious person or, yeah, your government. Who's like, yeah, hey, we'll make them an example. We'll lighten the load on this earth, make people an example, and hey, create a Netflix documentary series of some crime drama. Oh yeah, I've watched enough Netflix documentaries to figure out somebody's developing storylines here. And if you put yourself in position to be a storyline, then the system can't really feel sorry for you. You're expendable. You think yourself is expendable. You think your children are expendable. So why not make money off you? Why not make money off of your perception that you are expendable, that your life means nothing? And yeah, the system will use you. And they have. They have used kids in colleges. And they have used people who work for the government. And so if that's what you want to be, is you want to, be that kind of person. Well, I'm such a do-gooder. And you're kissing boots and kissing ass. I mean, I abide by the laws, but I'm not blinded by who my government. I know who my government is. I know you don't fuck with them. You don't mess with your government. You understand what they're trying to do, but you don't fucking mess with your government. And you don't kiss their ass either, because then they'll use you as a freaking tool. They know your weakness. Oh, I gotta be a good person. I pay my bills, pay my taxes, make sure my husband's on the straight and narrow, but make sure I warn him out the shit out there, because there is shit out there. He's from a small town. I'm from California. I don't leave keys in my car. I don't leave my doors open. But when I first met him, man, he put his keys in the car and leave them in there. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I would never do that in California, but in small towns like Ohio, people do that. They leave the doors open. They leave the keys in their car. They leave their wallets in their car. They leave their purses in the car. They leave their phones in the car. And then you hear all over these Nextdoor or Ring, oh, someone stole my wallet out of my car. Why the fuck would you leave a wallet in your car? And so I'm just thinking, like, these people, where the hell are they from? Oh, that's right. They're from a small town. They never exposed to diversity. No one ever did anything to them. I'm like, oh my God. I'm kind of glad I'll never go back to California, but I'm so glad I got to experience the worst of humanity. So that way I know, and I can feel, and I can read people, and I know, yeah, you can't trust any situation. You can't trust even a little town in your town. Oh, it's a safe area. Not necessarily. Okay. Not necessary. Don't let the high gates and the big houses and the nice lawns fool you. Somebody has a dungeon in somewhere. Someone's holding somebody hostage somewhere. Look what happened to Ariel Castro and those 3 girls. Hidden in plain sight. He held them captive for 10 fucking years. So no, there is no neighborhood that's safe. There is no person that's really safe. And there is no anything that's safe. You gotta fucking protect yourself. And if you can't do that, you'll be used as an example. And so in my world, when someone developed a demon of badness within me through so many different motivation tactics, then I spent my whole life trying to be a good person. But then I also have shades of badness that I also had to control. And I learned how to control my powers by balancing both worlds. And that's, when I go and I work at these offices, and I was a cold caller. Well, not cold caller. I was a telemarketer. And there was a system that on the front end you used, but there's also a back end. I figured out how to get to the back end. And part of me, I was getting so bored just using the front end, because I'm like, this is not, I want to. And so I even strategized how to get over on the system and use the back end of the system. I told a few people in that company. Maybe they might have changed things, I don't know. But it wasn't like they had any measures. I just figured out how to go through different channels to get phone numbers of people. And then I would intercept phone calls because someone else had those leads. And I'd be calling the same person. But that's, so when you've seen both sides and then your brain starts working, you'll get bored playing good sometimes, because then you're like, fuck, I need to get more leads. I need to get more money. And then you start doing, you just start crossing lines and going through different channels. But that was probably the worst that I've done as far as crossing lines when it comes to employment. I mean, I never did anything illegal. That wasn't illegal. That was just shades of gray. But if they caught me doing that, then I could say, well, I found a way to get leads, and you guys don't have anything. You don't have any firewalls or any password protected ways to get through. You just you have it open. I figured out how to put in the drop downs to do this, and oh, here's a bunch more leads that they weren't my leads, but hey, they were there. So that's the thing. So, you know, you have to learn how to control your powers, okay? When you know how to strategize survival, know how to strategize getting around certain systems, then you gotta learn how to control your powers. And some people are so fucking smart that they just want the system to catch them because they want to show how smart they are. Like the Unabomber and all those different, you know, psychopaths out there. They're so fucking smart, like Charles Manson. But you can be too smart, so you have to learn how to control your powers, okay? So eventually you'll become the good person you were meant to be because someone developed a badness within you and corrupted you in some way or another, assuming you survived that situation of converting back to what you were originally intended. In my opinion, I think women like bad boys because they know they're strong and capable, and sometimes the good guys are not as capable as strong, so strength is a motivator of attraction. Now, I'm not going to read all this because it's Sunday, but I want you to see that it's like you come into this world a good person, someone's going to corrupt you. Or you're going to come into this world a bad person, and you either correct yourself or you stay a bad person and you keep compounding the corruption until you destroy yourself. And so what I've found is that, okay, be a bad boy, be a bad girl, but learn how to control your powers and only use that badness as a way to protect yourself. Not to inflict pain and suffering on somebody else, but a way to protect yourself if you're ever backed into a corner. Or if you need to defend yourself because someone is talking smack about you. When you become influential on Facebook, there are going to be people on Facebook, when they recognize the weaknesses that you have because you're a good person, they are going to antagonize you. And I've seen it on Facebook. This young kid, he does the weather. He's a good guy, good kid. And he right now is under fire by people just making him out to be such a horrible person. And so he's going to have to figure out how to build a defense system and a way to communicate without suffering so much from the attacks of those that mean to break him down. But that is a type of corruption that you either will die from or you'll get stronger from, and then learn how to take the whatever it is that they're doing and defend yourself and block and delete and not respond and defend yourself so much that that's your whole platform is just defense. But that's the thing is that you have to learn how to take the corruption and make it work to your benefit and not against you. Okay? So there's that. Pain is a motivator. And there are a lot of motivators out there like addictions. Okay? And that's in politics, religion, science, and activism, and children and animals. And so since we have no real enemies, then the system has to be the one to develop predators and motivators for you to do something. And sometimes those motivators can be addictions. And sometimes those motivators can be things like false flags and wars and transitioning from one party to another, like Democrat, Republican, and New World Order, right? And Illuminati stuff. And so anyways, my shadow of death is lifting. I mean, I still have a little bit right here, but my arms are not as sore. They're not as sore at all. And I'm getting really good sleep. And no rashes under my armpits. I'm still having trouble lifting my arm all the way up. But this side is better. But this is where I carried all of that trauma of my childhood right there. And so, yeah, cancer is a spirit animal that will destroy you if you don't know how to release that demon. And so that's the thing too, is that people are starving themselves, starving their spirit animals, and the spirit animal destroys them inside. So anyways, I'm just gonna leave what I just said and just let it stay right now where it is. If I have to do something, I'll talk maybe more tomorrow. And my husband's out there watching stuff. I don't hang out with him. We were watching yesterday a show called, or a comedy show called Kill Tony. I've never heard of it. He's like, you never heard of it? No. So I watched it with him. I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. Okay. So anyway, so I'm gonna hang out with him. But I don't know if I'm gonna go. I might go into some depth in this. I don't know. But yeah, everyone has the propensity to be brutal with their power and control over an animal, over a child, over their friends and family, and even themselves. And so it's how do you control your powers of evil, and also how to control your powers of good so they don't become evil. And I don't know, man. That's the thing. And so so we have the chance to see through the left how corrupt people can be. Now through the right, we're going to hide that corruption through family. Through the family. And then if you can't assimilate to the situation, you'll be going to jail. Or you'll just, you won't survive the frequencies. But the system is going to hammer down. And there's going to be a lot of people resisting. And when you're in resistance, you'll destroy yourself. So prepare for this next world. It's going to be brutal. Find a way to stay home and stay safe. Be good enough to be a law-abiding citizen, but don't be so good that you put yourself in danger. Because we have girls and men and guys and whatever who want to be so good, they'll walk right into danger and they don't survive it. And that's what you see in the religious community. People who are so good and so God-fearing that they walk into danger. And that includes the medical holistic. They'll keep corrupting themselves through medical holistic starvation, operations, family and friends, going to gatherings. And you're seeing what happens when you're going out there and these planes are not taking off right or falling apart in the sky. So yeah, so the religious world coming up is going to be a safe way to funnel the destruction of society. I don't care if you're Hebrew, Yeshua, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Buddhist, atheist. You got to have a little evil in you so you can defend yourself, but not inflict pain and suffering on somebody else. And again, your goodness can be a cover. And that's why some people get confused. Because they look good, but they feel an unease around that person. That's why I just stay home. That's why I don't really hang out with anybody. Because I don't want to figure out what the hell you want. I don't want to figure out if I'm safe around you. I don't want to figure out anything. Maybe in small circumstances, people that I know personally, but not around diverse groups of people, no. Your back is turned. Someone gets triggered by your presence because you may have said something or done something that they don't like. And you get knifed in the back. Spiritually, physically, you don't know. So be good enough to be a law-abiding person, but be evil enough to stay home and stay safe so you can protect yourself and defend yourself. All right, bye.